Good afternoon, all. Uh, so we are here for the fireside chat. I hope you know about fireside chat, right? Any idea why it's called a fireside chat? You have any idea? It was something like our Prime Minister's Man Ki Baat, something like that, right? So it's a fireside chat which started way back in 1993 by Teddy Roosevelt, right? And he had his kind of radio sessions, which is being similar to what our PM is doing. So that's its casual, free-flowing discussion is what is known as a fireside chat. So today we're going to have a fireside chat, and it's been organized by, it will be conducted by Prabhu, who is the CEO of Fin, wonderful startup. Let's see.
Great. Thank you,
carry on
sir.
from there.
Thank you. So, just to begin with, to set the context, what Saurav sir said, it's a fire chat. So, let us keep the session open and free flowing. So, sir, we would like to know and we would like to discuss and understand. Like we are talking much about fintech, we are talking about much about banking fintech partnership, but still we see there's a lot of a gap. So, first, shall we touch upon the point like how fintechs and banks can collaborate together and create value to each other in this ecosystem?
Sure. Sure. That's a very important point. So what happened is that banks, banks being kind of what I call pillars of trust, right? So they were kind of have a very rigid framework to work with. Because if the banking framework breaks down, then there's a complete loss in the financial trust system that the citizens have. So, but at the same time, because it is being very rigid and very inflexible, so how to grow in terms of the footprint, in terms of acquiring new customers, in terms of providing new services. So that's where the fintech came in. So fintechs were basically, they started about 15 years back when the wave of fintechs came in. So you have the fintechs which basically came rapidly, did innovation in terms of acquiring customers, in terms of providing services, which were very, time consuming for the banks to start, to maintain, to grow. So all those parameters came into play. So fintech and banks at the earlier stages were looking like adversaries.
Right.
And then, then the banks also realized, this is the same pond that we are all living in, right? So we have to somewhere.
And given that they have a bigger mandate as well,
Correct.
right?
Correct. So that is how the whole thing started. And then banks have also realized that fintech is there to enhance their services, their business, and as well as the portfolio. But a word of caution, because fintechs are agile, and what happens is that sometimes corners are cut. So that's one of the biggest challenges, right? So fintechs, what happens is that once the corners get cut, for example, simple. So how do you, for example, let me give you an example. Instead of talking or at a higher level, let me go down a bit less so that you can understand what I'm talking about. So fintechs, for example, they use the ready-made platforms. And in India, there were ready-made platforms from big techs. Unfortunately, we don't have any Indian platforms to start with to have that kind of service. So we have the big threes, right? So Google is not that much, but of course, AWS were the first movers. Then you have Microsoft with their Azure platform. So what happened is that people started moving into AWS, which was quite easy to understand and quite easy to start with because they were the first movers in the cloud space. Now, what happened is that when the fintechs came in, they rapidly could design services, could design the offerings on the platform itself. And what happened is that because you didn't have, so what is that? How it works is that you pay as you go. The billing starts the moment you switch on a VM. In just small example. So the fintechs, instead of having multiple environments, they had only one or two environments maximum. In that environment, they used to play around, and the same environment was given for production. So that was one of the biggest challenges, right?
Right, true.
So billing, because to cut costs, so they cut down on the number of environments. So when you cut down the number of environments, the risk goes high. Second example is that in some of the recent breaches you have seen, I don't want to name, one of the top three, top private bank in India, just after SBI, or maybe above SBI, they had a breach way back about 1.5 years back with the lending partner. Don't want to name them again. So it was a fintech which was doing their the lending journey for them. So what happened is that again they were running on AWS, and about 30 million data was lost. Why it was lost? Because people will keep on hitting. So what is happening is that the external threats, external attackers will always come and try to see what is there, because financial area is quite lucrative. So they will try to get the
given the susceptibility to the environment.
yeah.
Right.
So it is vulnerable. So what happens that it's not that AWS is not safe. AWS is very much safe. But if you don't enable the security mechanisms, so there's something known as WAF. If the WAF configuration is not correct, right, then there are again different mechanisms to how to prevent the attackers, right? So you need to set there are also internal firewalls. The firewalls rules should be set, should not use the default passwords. Simple hygiene, right? So these are the things which if you do it, if that is not maintained, then these kind of things would happen. So this is the reason why fintechs were looked skeptically, and the growth did not happen that way.
The curve couldn't achieve.
Yes.
So rightly said that, just to take this further, now we are talking about, adoption of AI, adoption of, computing to the next level. And at the core front, the point of cost optimization comes to a point where, that's a vantage point.
Correct.
Now, what was heard, or what is the hypothesis, like, moving to cloud or being cloud native, rather than non being, on premises. So there's a lot of cost differentiation, but the perspective what you gave towards, data breach, data vulnerabilities. So how do you think, or what should be the right strategy to have that cost optimization plus getting that leverage over the new age technologies, sir? What would be your thoughts on that?
So one is that to start with, we should have certain rigid guidelines, right? So that is of permanence. I mean, if you follow the certain principles, then those things would not happen, right? So if you follow, for example, the basic hygiene of setting up an environment, setting up the configurations, keeping the backups, right? Periodic audits, all those things if you do. Even if you do with two environments, for example, a dev and a prod. So right. That will also work. But what happened is that in the example that I gave, the same person was running prod on the same dev environment. So that is not advisable, right? So those things need to be taken care of.
Great, sir. So, well, sir, like moving further on that aspect, like how do we make profitability in this, the situation now where we are into is, we have a lot of innovations done, and we have enough of innovations available, and innovation is speeding up day by day. But the challenge remains for us in the fintech ecosystem is how do we create value at the same time, how do we, add profitability? Any takes, like, what a bank should be expecting from fintech and vice versa?
Right. So profitability is again a kind of a
probably most interesting topic, to cheer up the crowd. So I thought, pull that point, sir.
Right. So profitability is something that everybody is looking for, and everybody is like to get a share from there. Now, from a fintech perspective, again, if you hit it right, if you get the model that you're building, if you get the structure that you have done rightly, then definitely the profitability come, and it is win-win situation for the bank and the fintech. For example, LOS, right, loan originating system, or say co-lending system, or say a CASA generating system, right? So these are the examples where the bank can increase its footprint manifold by using such kind of services from the fintechs who are mature enough, who have the right capabilities in terms of setting the boundaries right, and they are proving themselves. So it's a win-win situation for both of the players.
Great, sir. So any piece of advice from your side to the laggards who are, just catching up the pace, and any word of caution to the ones who are on the curve of innovation or who are at the brim of, the pinnacle of adoption?
So for the, I'll start from the first one. Who are the brim of the innovation, and they are making good profits, they are making good inroads. So word of caution to them is that they should not let their guard down. They should not bring the laxity into the system, so that it will not, from an audit perspective, from a security perspective, from an operational perspective, they should not cut costs. They should not cut corners. Only then they will be up the curve always. And for the laggards, they have to look at their the mistakes or their shortfalls, whatever they have done, so they can pick up and move forward. So that is all I could say.
Great, sir. Well said, sir. just moving further to get some insights on how ideal setup should be there. And I would not call it as a PSU bank. I would not like to call it as a private bank. But as a whole, what should be the ideal ask for a bank from a fintech to propel? As we could understand, banks have a larger mandate. They are a custodian of trust,
Yeah.
user base, and also they are having a larger mandate towards the economic growth. Now fintechs have probably the other side, like they are here about rapid innovation, quick rollout of the models. They can do a lot of R&D on the stuff. So what should be the expectation from both the parties, sir, in terms of adding value and also in terms of collaborating for a long run? Because we haven't heard much about collaborating on a long run. We have seen
That is something that we have to play it by the ear. It is not by the. It's not something which you can really define it, right? So
Right.
some fintechs click, some do not. Some fintechs click with certain banks. Some fintechs do not click. The same fintechs do not click with other banks, right? So that is something that we have to see how. What are the shortcomings? What are the expectations or the requirement? Whether they met the requirements or not. Many factors. I mean, we cannot quantify that way. So I think we should come back to the AI.
Great. Now coming back to the most important part, AI. So adoption of AI. So what kind of a value you see? Like, what kind of a progress we have seen? Enough of progress. In fact, we have reached miles, and miles have to go. But what kind of a progress you are expecting, sir, on a AI part
Right.
in the present scenario?
Right. So AI is something which is going to be in our lives from from last 4 or 5 years that we are seeing,
True.
right? From Hey Google to Siri, Hey Siri, right? Everything is coming into AI. Now, like I talked in the morning, so AI, what is definition of AI? What does it mean? In simple terms, AI means giving the machine the capability of human intelligence. Simple as that, right?
As good as
Very
it's right.
simple. So, what are the capabilities of human intelligence? So here, what we have seen right now has developed is that we have been able to do natural language processing to a very great extent. So natural language processing has got two aspects to it. One is the voice, and one is the understanding of documents and converting it, right? Summarizing, for example, right? So those two things we have achieved to a very large extent. The second piece of intelligence is visualization, or visual capabilities. So we have done a lot of things in image processing, and we have been able to do a lot in terms of image recognition, feature extraction, all of that. So that is also something that we have done in terms of intelligence. The third piece is reasoning, right? Reasoning. The
Right.
reasoning is something that we are trying to achieve, and there has been efforts made for quite some time, and there were some achievements, some early achievements, which somehow got swept under the carpet
Right.
because the machines were becoming too intelligent, right? So it's called sentinel, the machine being sentinel. Now, if the machine becomes sentinel, then you have a problem. So it can automatically write codes by itself. It can automatically do things which the human can do. So that is something. So Google had, in one instance, they had this of a machine, of a setup getting sentinel, though they stopped it. Then again, we have this new feature from the Chinese group, the DeepSeek group, which is again an startup.
AI startup, right?
Right. So what they have done is that again they have been using the artificial neural network. All of these works on artificial neural networks, right? So how this works is that let me just break it down for you. So what happened is that in the early days we had the CPU, right, and you had the math coprocessor. Then what happened is that the math coprocessor became a part of the CPU. Then you had something known as the GPU, the graphics processing unit. They thought that, okay, so you are doing a lot of math inside the CPU. So graphics also uses math. So you do a lot of transform. It's basically matrix manipulation. If I break it down to you, it's basically matrix manipulation, 2D, 3D, or maybe ND, right? So what happens is that in GPU, you can render pictures. All pixels are one element or one cell of matrix, and then 2D, then 3D, and then ND. Okay, so that is how it works. So you had the GPU coming in. So once the GPU guys saw that they can leverage this GPU as a neural processor. How? Because it is a kind of a, if you study computer architecture, there is an architecture definition called Flynn's architecture. right? So in Flint's architecture, it says there are 4 different types of machines, right? SISD, SIMD, MIMD, MISD, right? So if you look at that, so GPU is a type of single instruction, multiple data, SIMD. So you have a single instruction, which is the addition. Neural networks works on a perceptron concept. There's a perceptron where you put some input, add a weightage, get an output. Simple, very simple. So it's just a summation. So what the GPU can do is that they can take this input, single instruction, which is add multiple data sources. So in one shot, in one clock cycle, you can get the output. That is the speed of GPU. So from the GPU came the idea of neural processing unit. So that is how they segregated. So that is how the GPU is becoming so expensive, right? Exactly. And then you can have n dimension of that. So I talked about 2D, 3D, and then ND. The number of dimensions, the depth you go, the number of computation that you can do. So they talk about in the GPT that you can do 67 billion computations, right? So what are those? Those are actually computations being done on the GPU. So those many tokens are generated, and the tokens get optimized to a particular, they converge. It's called, you have different types. It's called reinforcement learning. In terms of AI, it's called reinforcement learning. So once it reinforces itself, there's a function which tells the system that it is going to the right answer or the wrong answer. So once you get that function right, so the system will converge to the answer that you expect. So that is how the whole thing works. It's called reinforcement learning. And for that, you don't have to train it. It will automatically train.
Self-learning model.
Right. So this is how the AI thing works. So you have the NLP, then you have the image processing, and then you have the reasoning. So all of these are all based on the neural networks, the concept of neural networks. Because the computing power has increased so much that you can have these neural networks right in your mobile devices. Right now, your mobile devices are more powerful than IBM 360 of the 1980s. It's so powerful.
True.
Right.
We are carrying the most powerful, computing device in our pockets.
So coming back to the profitability. Now with this AI, what we can do is that NLP, writing a simple email, answering to a customer's query, becomes quite easy. So there's a co-pilot which is there, and you can immediately answer to a customer's query, very professionally.
Great.
So that is how you save time. You save the time and you save the cost in terms of reducing the number of FTEs, the full-time engineers or the customer service representatives, CSRs, who are working on the system.
Great.
You can reduce it.
So that will be a significant amount of cost will increase. Great, sir. Thanks a lot on that perspective, sir. Now, moving to the next thing, which is very interesting for everyone. What's your take on the risk management and fraud prevention through which, AI, the new age AI or, the ongoing AI can help banks and, in the entire ecosystem. So what would be your take on this particular topic, sir? Risk management and fraud prevention.
Right. So risk management and fraud prevention is also one of the key areas in which AI can work. So AI can work, like I mentioned, billions and billions of data points. So the fraud and risk management for example, for banks, right? If I take the example
in the context
of
banking,
right? It happens. You can take fraud and risk management anywhere. You can take it anywhere, to airlines industry, to healthcare, anywhere. You can take it anywhere. But just giving you the banking industry perspective, because this is a BFSI conference. So in the banking industry, what you have is that you have got transactions coming from multiple channels. For example, you have a credit card, and you have done a transaction at a particular location, say for example in Thane, right? But how come the same credit card is being used somewhere in Worli? Not possible. So there's an anomaly. So what the system does, it does is a anomaly detection. So that is very simple, trivial example, that one credit card cannot be used at two points at the same time.
Right, perfectly, right.
Now what happens is that if you have multiple this kind of thing, so one person is doing an internet banking, at the same time is doing mobile banking, at the same time is doing credit card, not possible, right? So all these linkages you can find out. That is one. Second is that a person has got a particular behavior. He uses the card, say twice or thrice a month. Suddenly the card usage has gone to 10 times, right? So that is an anomaly. It will flag it, right? And it's called adaptive learning. So it sees that if your trend, if it is natural, it will flag it, and the human operator or the element will try to say, it's called HITM, human in the middle. So if the human in the middle trains the machine that yes, this is an expected behavior, yes, this is a valid transaction, then the system learns And when the system learns, it goes into adaptive learning. So adaptive learning will reduce a lot of your false positives in the EFRMS system. The enterprise fraud and risk management system of a bank, every bank has it. So the EFRMS system of the bank will have less amounts of false positive by using AI as one of the key parameters for coming to this kind of anomaly detection.
Great. So if I have to summarize it, it's like adding the AI and the human at the same time with the best possible extent.
Correct.
So we are able to decipher the best possible outcome, and we will be able to leverage on that. Greatly said, sir. Greatly said. So now just moving to the next part, which is very important again. We call it customer excellence, customer experience. So how AI can really mark the bench? How we can expect a standardization in the benchmarks, sir, using the AI?
So again, from a customer experience or excellence perspective, right? Again, it's the customer usage that is happening, and you can use those data points. For example, a page loading time, right? The time the person takes to complete one transaction. For example, one of the omni-channel, which is done one of the private banks, excellent omni-channel experience that you have in internet banking. I don't want to name the bank, but excellent usage.
So engagement is more fruitful, right?
Very fruitful and very fast. So what it does is very simple. You have to, the idea is that you need to keep all the journeys, customer journeys simple. Unless you keep it simple, it is not going to give the customer that experience. Now using AI, what you can do is you can check on the data points, right? So each time the customer use, that's a different journey. And how is the journey experience, that has to be captured. Based on that, you can improve upon your customer experience that is going forward with the system.
Perfect. So any take on this? See, we are talking about data-driven decision making, but in reality, in terms of, again, coming back to the profitability context, how we can leverage on this real-time data and how we can, take the entire concept of experience building, the ecosystem value using the data points in real time, sir?
Very important question. But again, we can easily do it. We have all the technology and capabilities of doing it. In fact, your device itself is a big source of information, right? So where are you going right now? Even if you don't switch on your Google application, you are getting tracked, right? It will give you a timeline at the end of the month that these are the places that you have gone, even without switching on your device, right? Same thing Apple does. Apple doesn't show you that, but it does complete tracking even if the phone is switched off.
Right.
Even if the phone is switched off, it is tracked. So that's the amount of information that is flowing in the system. Now with that system, I can find out that you are in a mall. I can do some suggestive promotions to you through the app or through something else. What happens is that instead of pushing through the app, which becomes quite intrusive in some cases, what is happening in other countries is that when you go through that mall, that display will give a product or a suggestion which is in line with you. Right? So that is something. So that is non-intrusive, but again it is intrusive if you look at that way. So those are the things which are happening now. Right? So it is not coming on your device, but it is coming on the display. And then you'll see, this is the one I wanted to look at. This is the thing that I want to look at. Exactly. So that is what happens. That is the suggestive psychological push that is being generated by the system. So the device knows where you are. So its geolocation is being captured. Just a simple example, right?
True.
So it's a very trivial example, but a very powerful one. It's a simple example. If you go to any of the, for example, it's not there here in India yet, but most of the shops, for example, KFCs or McDonald's, in other countries.
True.
So they will suggest that the display will change.
It keeps on, prompting you
with that, right? So it keeps on changing to your likings. So those are the things that they do. So it's a very simple but very powerful way of marketing and upselling the products.
Great, sir. Now coming to the optimizing the products or optimizing the decision-taking ability of an entity, whether it's a bank or a fintech. Well, let us talk from a banking perspective. How can AI really help in this aspect, sir, which is again very crucial for creating the entire value?
So if I understood from what you're saying is that how can AI help the fintechs?
Exactly.
Okay. So again, fintechs can leverage the AI component very easily. Because they can experiment with the various models and then can fit it into the banking system and see how it works to take it forward. We can always validate that model. So validation is something that very easily a fintech can do, and they can come back and say that yes, we failed or we passed, right? So that is very easy thing to do. If a bank says that we failed, that looks very bad.
True.
So it becomes very easy for a third-party element to come into the banking system and say this model works, this model doesn't work. Even if the bank said that this model should have worked, right? So those are the things that would help in deciding which way to go. So selection of a particular path, a particular journey, particular product, nuances of that product. So all these things AI would help in terms of, you get all the data points. You can get all the data points. The problem with banks is that bank is not a marketing agency, right? So they have only selected data points. So there's where the fintech comes in. Fintech can leverage from different data sources. They can look into the
they can
buying
keep on
pattern,
constantly,
buying pattern. They can buy even data from stores. For example, if you're going to a garment store, apparel store, gas station, all those data come into a credit card, for example, and then credit card information right up to the SKU level.
True.
So then that information can be leveraged and retrofitted with your bank information to give you a marketing journey or a marketing upsell, cross-sell kind of thing.
Great, sir. So what do you foresee the future of AI, sir, in this thing? Now, what did you see ahead of 2025 and 2026 side? What would be the future of AI?
So AI is definitely going to be here. So that we have already seen, right? So AI is definitely going to be a part of our life with this computing system enhancing on a daily basis, on a regular basis. If you look at the latest innovation done by Apple with the Apple Silicon, with the M4 chip that they've got a fantastic amount of, if you look at the Pro Max, the highest end, it has got a fantastic amount of GPU built in, NPU built into it, neural processing unit, right? And it can give a run for the money to NVIDIAs of the world. You can run a full-fledged AI system on your laptop, right? You can run a full model up to 67 billion tokens on your laptop. So that is the power of performance of computing. So we'll see this computing, and they have done a 3 nanometer technology. So that's again a CPU technology in which the size between the distance between the two transistors is 3 nanometers. So those are the types of innovations we are seeing. We are reaching the physical limits of practicality in terms of the physical theoretical limits, and we'll see some innovations coming up definitely in terms of hardware, in terms of the applications, and in terms of the usability of those applications.
Great, sir. We touched upon the business aspect. Any points on the governance side, sir? You can touch.
Yes. So governance is also very important, because what is happening is that with all this data that you have, using AI, we can leverage and get into the governance thing very easily, right? And we can take decisions instead of waiting for a long time. You can come to a decision point very quickly. Very good for the administrators or for the decision makers to go forward. I think.
Great. So I think we Dr. Saurav Datta could cover wide spectrum of AI usage and the impact both on business side, governance side. I think we could get a fair perspective and understanding how it's gonna there. But as sir said, AI is here to be there, and we have to embrace it. And the early we embrace, so we're gonna take it to the next level. So I think, and you've been all a wonderful audience. Thanks for your patience. Thanks a lot, and thanks a lot, sir, for your wonderful insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you indeed, Saurabh sir and Mr. Prabhu.